Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a story of betrayal, strategy, and the ultimate comeback. This isn't just a tale, it's a masterclass in turning humiliation into pure power. Before we jump in, I want to take a quick moment to thank each and every one of you for being part of this incredible community. If you're loving these stories of empowerment, resilience, and getting that sweet victory, consider hitting that subscribe button. It's totally free, and it helps us build this amazing space where we celebrate strength. Now, let's get into it. The last laugh, and then some. He tried to embarrass me by flirting with another woman right in front of me, but by the end of the night, I was the one who had the last laugh. You know that sinking feeling when you realize someone's trying to break you? That's exactly what I felt watching Marcus Thorne deliberately flirt with the blonde at the next table. Each laugh, each accidental touch, each meaningful glance, it was all choreographed perfectly to shatter my dignity in front of everyone at my own birthday dinner. But Marcus never was good at reading the room, or me, for that matter. The restaurant was packed with our friends and colleagues, the same people I'd invited to celebrate what I thought would be a special evening. The crystal chandeliers of the Metropolitan Grill threw sparkles across the champagne glasses, creating an ironically festive atmosphere for my public humiliation. Every time she giggled at his jokes, I could feel pitying glances from our dinner guests burning into my skin. Olivia Chen, my SEO, kept shooting me concerned looks, while Ben Carter from Legal seemed particularly interested in his lobster thermidor. "Oh, Marcus, you're so funny." Her voice carried across the table, perfectly pitched to ensure I wouldn't miss a word. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Probably 10 years younger than me, with that fresh-faced innocence I'd lost somewhere between board meetings and building my empire. Her red dress was designer, but just a touch too obvious for the Metropolitan Grill's refined atmosphere. Marcus had always been predictable in his tastes. What Marcus didn't know was that while he was playing his little game, I, Eleanor Vance, was sitting on information that would make this evening unforgettable. Just not in the way he planned. You see, success leaves clues, and failure leaves paperwork. 2 weeks ago, I discovered something interesting about Marcus's new business venture, the one he'd been funneling my investment firm's money into. The same venture he'd been using to impress his new friend with tales of his business acumen. I watched him gesture animatedly, probably explaining his brilliant strategy for market disruption, the same strategy that involved cooking books so creatively they could have won a Michelin star. My team had discovered the discrepancies during a routine audit, but I'd kept that information close to my chest. Sometimes patience is the best weapon in your arsenal. Taking another sip of my champagne, I observed as he leaned in closer to her, his wedding ring glinting under the chandelier light. The same ring I'd given him 5 years ago, back when I thought love and business could mix without combusting. My phone buzzed silently in my clutch, right on schedule. I didn't need to check it to know what it said. The SEC doesn't send courtesy notifications when they launch investigations, but my contacts are a bit more considerate. Around the table, our guests were starting to shift uncomfortably. Marcus's display was becoming too obvious to ignore, and in our social circle, embarrassment was a communicable disease. I could see reputations being mentally recalculated, alliances shifting like tectonic plates beneath the surface of polite society. "Another bottle of the Krug, please," I told the hovering sommelier, my voice carrying just enough to draw attention. I think we all need it for what's coming next. The blonde, Chloe Hayes, according to her LinkedIn profile that I'd studied thoroughly, laughed at something Marcus whispered in her ear. Her laugh was practiced, professional. It should be, considering her role as VP of Corporate Communications at Harding Global, our biggest competitor, and coincidentally, the company that had just secretly agreed to acquire my firm along with all its assets and liabilities, including Marcus's creative accounting projects. "Marcus, darling," I called out, my voice steady and sweet as artificial sweetener. Why don't you invite your friend to join our table? I'm sure everyone would love to meet the new VP of Corporate Communications at Harding Global. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. Chloe's professional laugh cut off mid-sound. The table went quiet enough to hear a reputation drop. You see, Marcus had always underestimated me. He saw what he wanted to see. The woman who'd given him a job, a ring, and apparently enough rope to hang himself professionally. What he never saw was the chess player, the strategist who'd built a multi-million-dollar investment firm from scratch while he was still trading penny stocks and dreams. How? Marcus started, but I cut him off with a smile that could freeze hell. Happy birthday to me, I said, raising my glass. The ice cubes clinked against the crystal, a perfect accompaniment to the sound of Marcus's world beginning to crumble. Chloe, I hope your team at Harding is ready for a busy week. The press loves a good corporate scandal, especially one with such personal elements. Around the table, realization dawned like a slow-motion car crash. Olivia's concern transformed into barely concealed glee. She'd never liked Marcus. Ben the lawyer had finally looked up from his lobster, his expression professional, but his eyes alight with the joy of someone who lives for contractual bloodbaths. He tried to humiliate me by flirting with another woman in front of me, but by the end of the night, it was me who walked away with the last laugh, along with his company, his reputation, and the knowledge that sometimes revenge is best served with a side of champagne and a garnish of perfect timing. As I stood to leave, I couldn't help but appreciate the symmetry of it all. Marcus had wanted to make my birthday memorable. And thanks to his spectacular miscalculation, it would be a night none of us would ever forget. The silence that followed my announcement lasted precisely 3 seconds before chaos erupted in the most polite way possible. The Metropolitan Grill's other patrons pretended not to stare while watching every moment of the unfolding drama. Marcus stood frozen, his expensive suit suddenly seeming to hang awkwardly on his frame, while Chloe's professional composure cracked like thin ice. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus attempted, his voice carrying that fake confidence I'd heard so many times in board meetings before he presented cooked numbers. Chloe and I were just discussing potential business opportunities. Oh, I'm sure you were. I took another sip of champagne, savoring the moment like a fine vintage. Just like you were discussing business opportunities when you diverted $2.3 million from the Anderson account into your shell company. Olivia choked on her drink, though I couldn't tell if it was from shock or delight. The rest of our dinner guests were doing their best impressions of tennis spectators, heads swiveling between Marcus and me. Chloe started gathering her things, her movements sharp and panicked. I should go. Please stay, I said, my tone making it clear this wasn't a request. After all, Harding Global might want to know exactly what kind of liability they inherited when the merger goes through. Or did Marcus not mention that part when he was sharing insider information? The color that had drained from Marcus's face now rushed back in an angry flush. He took a step toward our table, then seemed to think better of it when Ben the lawyer cleared his throat meaningfully. You can't prove anything, Marcus hissed, but his eyes darted to his half-empty whiskey glass like he wished it was something stronger. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a small USB drive, placing it delicately next to my champagne flute. Funny thing about modern technology, it leaves traces. Emails, bank transfers, even those cute little messages you've been sending Chloe about our company's confidential information. The SEC finds these things fascinating. The restaurant's soft background music seemed to fade away as the weight of my words settled over the table. Marcus's hands were trembling now, though he tried to hide it by shoving them in his pockets. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice cracked on the second word. Am I? I smiled. The kind of smile that sharks might give if they wore Chanel. Would you like to test that theory? I'm sure our guests would love to hear the details, or perhaps we should call the partners at Harding Global. I have them on speed dial. Chloe stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor with an undignified screech. We didn't. She looked at Marcus with a mixture of horror and betrayal before grabbing her purse and practically running for the exit. Wait, Marcus called after her, taking a few steps before realizing that following her would only confirm everything to our audience. I stood slowly, smoothing my dress with deliberate care. You know, Marcus, when you decided to humiliate me at my own birthday dinner, you really should have chosen someone who wasn't working for our biggest competitor. That's the problem with your schemes. You never think them through to the end. Our dinner guests were silent now, watching the systematic destruction of Marcus's career and reputation with the fascinating horror of people watching a luxury car crash in slow motion. What do you want? Marcus finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Want? I laughed, and it was a genuine laugh, the kind that comes from pure, undiluted satisfaction. I already have everything I want. By this time tomorrow, the SEC will have their investigation underway. Harding Global will be backing out of their merger plans. And you, I paused, letting the moment stretch. You will be exactly what you've always been, a man who mistook my kindness for weakness. I picked up my clutch, leaving the USB drive on the table like a loaded gun. Happy birthday to me indeed. Turning to our guests, I added, please enjoy the rest of dinner. I've already taken care of the bill. Consider it a parting gift. As I walked toward the exit, I could hear the murmurs starting behind me, the buzz of scandal taking wing. Marcus remained rooted to his spot, staring at the USB drive like it was a venomous snake. In a way, it was. One that he had nurtured in his own books, fed with his own greed, and ultimately let strike at his own heart. He had tried to humiliate me in front of everyone who mattered in our world. Instead, he'd given me the perfect stage for his own undoing. Sometimes karma needs a helping hand, and mine was manicured to perfection. The night air hit my face as I stepped out of the Metropolitan Grill, carrying with it the sweet scent of victory. My driver, Michael, was already waiting with the car door open. What Marcus never knew was that Michael wasn't just my driver. He was also a former intelligence operative who'd been instrumental in uncovering the web of lies I'd just exposed. Everything went according to plan? Michael asked as he pulled away from the curb. Even better. I slipped off my heels, letting the tension of the evening seep out of my shoulders. Chloe played her part perfectly, even though she had no idea she was in my production. The truth was, I'd known about Marcus's affair with Chloe for 3 months. What he didn't realize was that she wasn't his first contact at Harding Global. I was 6 months ago when their CEO, Richard Harding, approached me about a potential merger. I discovered Marcus's embezzlement. Rather than confront him immediately, I'd watched, waited, and documented everything. Take me to the office, I instructed Michael. There's one more scene in this play. My phone buzzed, a text from Olivia. He's still standing there staring at the USB drive. Should I tell him it's blank? I smiled, typing back, let him sweat. The real evidence is already with the SEC. The New York City lights blurred past as we drove to my office building. Everything Marcus had done, the public flirting, choosing my birthday dinner for his display, bringing Chloe to our regular restaurant, had been calculated to humiliate me. But his real mistake was assuming I was the same naive woman who'd given him a job 5 years ago. In my office, I kicked off my heels and walked to the window wall overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Behind me, my laptop pinged with an incoming email. Right on schedule, Mrs. Vance, the email from Richard Harding read. In light of recent developments concerning potential financial irregularities at your firm, Harding Global is preparing to announce our withdrawal from merger discussions. However, given your proactive handling of the situation and the evidence you've provided, we would like to discuss an alternative arrangement. Another ping, this time from my private investigator. Attached were photos of Marcus leaving various hotels over the past months, not just with Chloe, but with 3 other women. All of them coincidentally worked for companies we were in negotiations with. Marcus hadn't just been cheating, he'd been trying to build his own network of insider information. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Agent Miller. "Everything is in place," she said when I answered. "We move first thing in the morning. You're sure you want to go through with this? He was your husband." Was being the operative word, I replied, thinking of the divorce papers already prepared and waiting in my desk drawer. "And yes, I'm sure." He didn't just betray me. He betrayed our investors, our employees, everything we built. I opened my safe and pulled out the real USB drive. The one containing 3 years' worth of evidence. Every transaction, every secret meeting, every attempt to undermine the company I'd built from the ground up. Marcus had thought he was so clever, building his little empire within mine. He never realized he was being watched the entire time. Olivia texted again. He finally left, tried to take the fake USB, but Ben accidentally spilled wine on it. She'd seen his face. All the pieces were all falling into place. By morning, the SEC would launch their investigation. By noon, Harding Global would publicly withdraw from the merger. And by evening, Marcus would discover that his access to all accounts, both corporate and personal, had been frozen. But the real twist? Those companies he thought he was manipulating through his affairs. They were all subsidiaries of my parent corporation, staffed with loyal employees who'd been reporting his every move back to me. Chloe, the other women, the seemingly careless flirtations, all of it had been a carefully orchestrated dance leading to this moment. I poured myself a glass of scotch from the crystal decanter in my office, the one Marcus had given me for our first anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Your car is still at the restaurant," Michael's voice came through the intercom. "Would you like me to have it brought here?" "No," I replied, watching the city lights twinkle below. "Let him see it there tomorrow morning when he's desperately trying to salvage what's left of his dignity." Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about making sure they know exactly how thoroughly they lost. Morning arrived with the precision of a well-oiled machine. I'd barely slept, but adrenaline was a better stimulant than coffee. My phone started buzzing at exactly 7 a.m., right as the SEC's investigation became public knowledge. "Turn on CNBC," Olivia's voice crackled through my car speakers as Michael drove me to the office. The financial news anchor was already dissecting the developing scandal at Vance Partners Investment Group. The ticker at the bottom of the screen showed our stock had been temporarily suspended from trading. Marcus just tried to access his executive account, my IT head Kevin messaged. Should I let him in just to see the emptiness or keep him locked out? "Let him in," I replied. Sometimes the horror of seeing everything gone is better than wondering what's left. The office was buzzing when I arrived. Everyone knew something big was happening, but only my inner circle knew the full scope. I'd spent months preparing them, positioning loyal employees in key roles, ensuring that when Marcus fell, the company would stand strong. "Harding Global just released their statement," Ben announced, walking into my office with his tablet. "In light of recent developments, Harding Global regretfully announces its withdrawal from merger discussions with Vance Partners. We are cooperating fully with regulatory authorities regarding any potential irregularities." I smiled, straightening my Armani blazer. Right on cue. Is everything ready for the emergency board meeting? All board members are attending virtually except for Marcus, who's conspicuously unreachable. Ben's grin matched mine. The SEC agents are waiting in the conference room, and we've got the forensic accountant standing by. My phone buzzed. A desperate text from Marcus. "Please, we need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding." I can explain everything. I left it unread. Let him sweat. Instead, I opened my laptop and initiated the final phase. With a few keystrokes, I activated the contingency protocol we'd prepared. All of Marcus's corporate passwords were invalidated, his biometric access was revoked, even his company phone was remotely wiped, though not before we'd backed up every incriminating message. Miss Vance, my assistant Maria poked her head in. The press is gathering in the lobby. They're requesting a statement. Perfect timing. I stood checking my reflection in the window. Olivia, is the presentation ready? She nodded, handing me a tablet. Everything's loaded. Financial records, transaction histories, correspondence, all sanitized to protect our legitimate operations while highlighting Marcus's creative activities. The elevator ride to the conference room felt like ascending to a battlefield I'd already won. Through the glass walls, I could see the SEC agents in their crisp suits, the board members on the video screens, and the empty chair where Marcus should have been. He's here, Michael's voice came through my earpiece. Just pulled up in front of the building. Security is delaying him appropriately. I took my place at the head of the conference table, arranging my features into a mask of controlled concern. The cameras would be rolling soon, and optics were everything. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, as the doors opened and Marcus burst in, looking disheveled and desperate. Thank you for joining us on such short notice. As you're aware, serious allegations have come to light regarding certain financial irregularities within our organization. Eleanor, stop this! Marcus interrupted, his voice cracking. You don't understand what you're doing. I continued as if he hadn't spoken, my voice steady and professional. Our internal audit has uncovered evidence of systematic fraud and embezzlement orchestrated by our former CFO and board member, Marcus Thorne. Former? He sputtered. Yes, former. I clicked to the next slide, displaying a damning series of transaction records. As of this morning, the board has voted unanimously to terminate your position and cooperate fully with the SEC investigation. The room erupted in controlled chaos as security appeared to escort Marcus out. He struggled briefly, his expensive suit now completely rumpled, his face contorted in a mixture of rage and disbelief. You can't do this to me, he shouted. I made this company what it is. I waited until he was almost at the door before delivering the final blow. No, Marcus, you just proved why I was right to build it without you. The board meeting minutes will reflect that your termination was decided last night, coincidentally, right around the time you were trying to humiliate me at the Metropolitan Grill. As the doors closed behind him, I turned back to the waiting cameras. Now, shall we discuss the future of Vance Partners? The press conference wrapped up precisely as planned, with every question answered and every narrative thread carefully woven. As the journalists filed out, their headlines practically writing themselves, I noticed Chloe hovering nervously by the conference room door. Perfect timing, Ms. Hayes, please come in, I called out, watching her flinch at the use of her real surname. I believe we have some family business to discuss. The remaining board members on the video screens leaned forward with interest. Chloe, or rather Amanda Harding, walked in like she was approaching her own execution. Few people knew she wasn't just a VP at Harding Global. She was Richard Harding's daughter, carefully planted in our orbit months ago. I can explain, she began, but I held up a hand. Your father already did, I replied, gesturing for her to sit. In fact, he was quite impressed with how this all played out. Weren't you, Richard? One of the video screens flickered, and Richard Harding's face appeared, replacing the board member's feed. Indeed, Eleanor. Though I must say, you played us all masterfully. Olivia distributed fresh coffee as I pulled out a new set of documents. The thing about chess, Richard, is that the best players think several moves ahead. When you approached me about the merger 6 months ago, did you really think I wouldn't investigate why you were so interested in a company 1/3 your size? Chloe shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Dad, you said this was just about market research. It was, Richard sighed, until we discovered Marcus's embezzlement. We thought we could use it as leverage in the merger negotiations. I smiled, sliding the documents across the table to Chloe. Instead, you helped me clean house. Thank you for that, by the way. Marcus was getting sloppy, but he needed to implode spectacularly for this to work. For what to work? Chloe asked, scanning the papers in front of her. Her eyes widened. This is a new merger proposal. I finished for her. One where Vance Partners maintains its autonomy while forming a strategic alliance with Harding Global. One where your father gets the market expansion he wanted, and I get to keep the company I built, now free from any internal threats. Ben cleared his throat. The investigation will clear Vance Partners of institutional wrongdoing by end of week. All evidence points to Marcus acting alone, with a few middle managers who've already agreed to testify against him. Those managers, Olivia added with a smirk, were all hired within the last 6 months, thoroughly vetted and completely loyal to us. Their testimonies are already prepared. Richard's laugh boomed through the speakers. I always wondered how you built such a successful firm so young. Now I know. You're absolutely ruthless when necessary. Not ruthless, I corrected. Strategic. Speaking of which, Chloe, your performance was excellent. The board position at the merged company mentioned in those documents. It's yours if you want it. For real this time. Chloe looked up from the papers, a new respect in her eyes. You knew the whole time that you were Richard's daughter. Of course. That you were genuinely falling for Marcus? That was an unexpected bonus that made everything more convincing. I turned to Olivia. How is our former CFO handling his new circumstances? Olivia checked her phone. Currently in his 3rd hour of SEC questioning, apparently he's still insisting that you set him up. Technically, we all did, Ben pointed out. The question is, will he ever realize just how long this has been in motion? I stood smoothing my skirt. He never understood that business isn't about individual plays. It's about controlling the entire board. Walking to the window, I watched the media vans pulling away from our building. Richard, shall we announce the new merger talks next week? Give the market time to digest today's excitement. Always thinking ahead, Richard chuckled. Chloe, come home. We have details to discuss. As Chloe hurried out, clearly eager to escape the scene of her previous deceptions, Olivia approached with a fresh cup of coffee. You know, when you hired me 2 years ago, I never imagined I'd be part of something like this. When I started this company 5 years ago, I never imagined I'd have to be, I replied, taking the coffee. But that's the thing about success. It shows you exactly who people are. Marcus showed me he was a threat. You showed me you were an ally. Ben joined us at the window, his reflection showing a satisfied smile. And now, I said, raising my coffee cup in a mock toast, we show everyone else exactly who we are, a company that can't be played, manipulated, or taken over. Because we're always 3 moves ahead. The city sprawled before us, a chessboard of endless possibilities. And for the first time since discovering Marcus's betrayal, I felt truly, completely in control. The players were all in position, the moves were made, and the game was mine. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of conference calls and strategy meetings. It wasn't until my phone buzzed with an unexpected alert that the real endgame began to unfold. He's trying to access the private servers, Kevin's message read, using his old backdoor credentials. I smiled, setting down my coffee. Let him in. Olivia looked up from her tablet. Are you sure? We could just lock him out completely. No, I replied, moving to my computer. Let him think he's found a way to salvage something. It's time he learned what real helplessness feels like. We watched in real time as Marcus navigated through what he thought was our secure server. What he didn't know was that he was in a carefully constructed honeypot, a fake system designed to look exactly like our actual network. Every file he accessed, every document he tried to download was being logged and transmitted directly to the SEC. He's going for the offshore account records, Kevin reported. Of course he is, Ben chuckled. Should I call Agent Miller now? I held up a hand. Wait for it. He needs to try the transfer first. Minutes ticked by as we watched Marcus attempt to access the hidden accounts he'd set up. accounts we'd known about for months but had left untouched as bait. On my screen, I could see him trying desperately to move funds, his multiple failed attempts growing more frantic. "Ms. Vance," Maria's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Thorne is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you. Perfect timing." "Send him up, Maria. Make sure security is ready." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "You're actually going to see him?" "Oh, yes," I replied, straightening my desk. Every great performance deserves a proper finale. The elevator dinged and Marcus burst through my office doors, his earlier polish completely shattered. His tie was loose, hair disheveled, and the wild look in his eyes suggested he'd been drinking. "What did you do?" he demanded, stumbling slightly. "The accounts, all of them, they're empty." I leaned back in my chair, projecting calm. "Are they? How interesting that you'd know about accounts that officially don't exist. Don't play games with me, Eleanor." "Those were my insurance policies." "No, Marcus," I corrected, standing slowly. "They were evidence. Every transfer, every hidden account, every attempt to steal from this company, it's all documented. And as of," I checked my watch, 3 minutes ago, it's all in the hands of the— His face went through a rapid succession of emotions: rage, fear, disbelief. "You can't prove anything. I covered my tracks." "Did you?" I pressed a button on my desk and the wall of screens behind me lit up. Each one showed a different piece of evidence: bank transfers, falsified reports, secret meetings with competitors. "Your definition of covered needs work." "This is all fake," he sputtered. "You set me up." "Actually," Ben said, emerging from my private conference room with Agent Miller, "you set yourself up. We just made sure to document everything." Marcus spun around, nearly losing his balance. "You don't understand," he pleaded with the SEC agent. "She's the one manipulating everything. She trapped me." "By making you embezzle funds?" Agent Miller asked dryly. "By forcing you to create fake accounts? By compelling you to attempt unauthorized access to corporate servers just now?" The color drained from Marcus's face as realization dawned. "You were watching all this time?" "We were," I confirmed, walking around my desk. "Every desperate move you just made trying to hide your crimes, logged, tracked, and transmitted. Your insurance policies just became the final nails in your coffin." Security appeared in the doorway as Marcus lunged for my desk. "You vindictive! You planned this all along." "No, Marcus," I said as the guards restrained him. "You planned this the moment you decided to betray everything we built. I just decided to make sure you lost everything in return." Agent Miller stepped forward, pulling out her handcuffs. "Marcus Thorne, you're under arrest for securities fraud, embezzlement, and attempted unauthorized access of corporate systems." As they led him away, his threats and protests echoing down the hallway, Olivia handed me a glass of champagne. Was it worth it? All these months of planning? I walked to the window, watching as they loaded Marcus into an FBI vehicle below. He tried to humiliate me in front of everyone who mattered, tried to make me look weak, foolish, easily discarded. Instead, he proved exactly why I'm the one who belongs in this office. The car pulled away, and with it, the last traces of my failed marriage and Marcus's attempted corporate coup. The tables hadn't just turned, they'd been flipped entirely, scattering all his carefully laid plans into chaos. "Now," I said, turning back to my team, "let's discuss how we're going to double our market share by the end of the quarter." The adrenaline of victory lasted exactly 3 days. It wasn't until I walked into my empty penthouse apartment Friday evening that the full weight of everything settled onto my shoulders. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant sound of New York City traffic 50 floors below. My phone had been buzzing constantly with messages, some congratulatory, others concerned, and a few from people scrambling to distance themselves from Marcus. But it was the text from his mother, Brenda Thorne, that finally made me pause. "How could you do this to him?" "To our family?" I poured myself a generous glass of scotch, remembering all the holiday dinners at their house, the way his father had treated me like the daughter they never had. They were innocent casualties in this war, and their pain was the first crack in my armor of righteousness. Ms. Vance? Maria's voice came through on my private line. I'm sorry to disturb you at home, but Mr. Thorne's assistant, Mia Rodriguez, is asking about her position. She's worried about being implicated. Mia, fresh out of college, hired by Marcus 6 months ago, another innocent caught in the crossfire. Tell her to come see me Monday morning. Her job is safe. After hanging up, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sparkled below, uncaring about the lives being reshaped in its glass towers. My reflection stared back at me, and for a moment, I hardly recognized myself. My phone buzzed again. Olivia this time. You need to see this. Marcus's daughter from his first marriage is on social media. Not good. Sophie. I'd forgotten about Sophie. She was in her senior year at Yale, proudly posting about her father's business acumen just last month. Now her world had imploded too, her family name tainted, her father's disgrace splashed across every financial news outlet. I opened the post Olivia mentioned. Sophie's words were raw, angry, devastating. How does it feel, Eleanor, destroying not just my father, but our entire family? Hope your revenge was worth it. The scotch burned going down, but not enough to wash away the taste of Pyrrhic victory. In the corner of my home office, a photo caught my eye. Marcus and I at a charity gala last year, both smiling, both lying. I walked over and turned it face down. The partners at Anderson and Reed are pulling their investments, Ben's message flashed on my screen. They're worried about association with the scandal. Of course they were. The same people who'd laughed at Marcus's jokes last week were now running for cover, taking their money with them. The company would survive, I'd made sure of that, but the ripples of destruction were spreading wider than I had anticipated. My private elevator pinged, and Olivia stepped out. I hadn't even heard her call up. I thought you might need this, she said, holding up a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. The social media storm is getting worse. How bad? Well, besides Sophie's posts going viral, 3 major clients have publicly announced they're reviewing their relationship with us. The board is nervous about market perception. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The board? The same board that unanimously supported destroying Marcus? People have short memories when their money's at risk, Olivia said, pouring the wine. And Marcus. He might have been a bastard, but he was a charming bastard. Made a lot of friends in the industry. Friends who were now choosing sides, drawing lines, reassessing allegiances. The clean victory I'd imagined was turning messy, complicated by human emotions and relationships I'd overlooked in my pursuit of revenge. Sophie called the office, Olivia continued carefully. She wanted to know if we're going to help with her father's legal fees, given their prenup arrangements. The prenup, another casualty. Sophie's college fund had been tied to Marcus's assets, which were now frozen. Her future, planned out since childhood, was collateral damage in my war against her father. Set up a trust, I said finally. Anonymously, make sure she can finish school. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Having regrets? No, I replied, but my voice lacked its usual certainty. He deserved everything he got. I trailed off, watching a plane's lights blink across the night sky. I didn't factor in everyone else who would get hit by the debris. That's the thing about corporate explosions, Olivia mused. The shrapnel doesn't care who it hits. I picked up my phone, looking at Sophie's angry words again. Victory had tasted sweet in the moment, but now it left a bitter aftertaste. I'd won the battle exactly as planned, but the war's casualties were still being counted. Monday morning arrived with the crisp certainty of a new dawn. The weekend's doubts hadn't disappeared, but they crystallized into something else: determination. As I stepped into my office, the first rays of sunrise painted the Manhattan skyline in shades of possibility. The SEC's final report is in, Ben announced, following me in with a thick folder. They're officially clearing the company of any institutional wrongdoing. Marcus's plea deal negotiations started this morning. Olivia joined us, tablet in hand. Harding Global stock is up 12% on news of our strategic partnership. And Sophie, she paused, checking her phone. Sophie posted a thank you note about the mysterious scholarship foundation that's taking over her tuition. I smiled, remembering the anonymous trust I'd set up. Some victories didn't need to be claimed publicly. Ms. Vance, Mia, Marcus's former assistant, hovered nervously in the doorway. You wanted to see me? Yes, come in. I gestured to a chair. How would you feel about heading our new intern development program? Full benefits, significant pay raise, and a chance to mentor others the way you deserve to be mentored. Her eyes widened. But after everything with Mr. Thorne, you were another pawn in his game, I said gently. It's time for you to become a player in your own right. As Mia left, visibly relieved, Maria buzzed through. Richard Harding is here for the official partnership signing, and you have another visitor. I knew who it was before she said it. Send them both in. Richard entered first, looking exactly like the titan of industry he was. Behind him came Marcus's mother, Brenda Thorne, her face a mask of controlled emotion. Eleanor, she started, but I held up a hand. Before you say anything, please read this. I handed her a document, the full forensic accounting of Marcus's crimes, along with proof that he'd been embezzling from his own family's trust fund. He wasn't just betraying me or the company. The money he stole, some of it was meant for Sophie's education, for your retirement. Brenda's hands trembled as she read. Richard, ever the strategist, used the moment to spread out the partnership agreements on my desk. Ready to make history? He asked, offering me a pen. I took it, but didn't sign immediately. Brenda, I want you to understand something. What I did to Marcus, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice for everyone he hurt, including his family. She looked up, tears in her eyes. All these years, we thought he was just good with money. He was good at taking it, I corrected gently. But now, with this partnership, we can make things right. I turned to the final page of the agreement, where a specific clause was highlighted. This ensures that the Thorne Family Trust will be restored with additional provisions for Sophie's education and your retirement. Why? Brenda whispered. After how we treated you this week? Because true victory isn't about destroying everything in your path, I said, finally signing the partnership agreement. It's about rebuilding something better from the ashes. Richard countersigned with a flourish. Well said. Shall we make the announcement? The next hour was a blur of press cameras and handshakes. As we stood for photos, Marcus's face appeared on the office TV screens, being led into court for his plea hearing. The contrast couldn't have been more perfect, him in handcuffs, me signing a multi-billion-dollar partnership deal. After the media cleared out, I found myself alone in my office with Olivia and Ben, the same team that had stood by me through it all. So, Olivia said, pouring champagne, was it worth it? I walked to the window, remembering that night at the Metropolitan Grill when Marcus had tried to humiliate me. He thought he could break me with a public display of disrespect. Instead, he gave me the perfect stage to show everyone exactly who I am. And who is that? Ben asked, handing me a glass. Someone who turns humiliation into triumph, who takes betrayal and transforms it into empire. I raised my glass. He tried to make me look weak in front of everyone who mattered. Now they'll never forget how strong I really am. The champagne tasted like validation, like vindication, like victory, but not the bitter kind I tasted days ago. This was sweeter, tempered by wisdom and strengthened by mercy. To the last laugh, Olivia toasted. No, I corrected, watching the sun glint off nearby skyscrapers. To the next chapter, because that's the thing about true victory. It's not just about winning the battle. It's about choosing what kind of winner you become. The view from the CEO's office at Harding Vance Global was even more impressive than my old one. 55 stories up, watching snow drift past the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the entire city that had witnessed my transformation. The annual reports are in, Olivia announced, entering with her trademark precision timing. Our merger has outperformed projections by 40%. The board is ecstatic. I smiled, remembering a very different board meeting a year ago. And our special projects? The Family Educational Foundation has funded scholarships for 50 students this year. Olivia pulled up the details on her tablet. Sophie is graduating summa cum laude next month. She asked if you'll attend. That was unexpected. After everything, Sophie and I had maintained a careful distance, communicating only through intermediaries and lawyers. Her invitation felt like the closing of a circle. Ms. Vance? Maria's voice came through the intercom. There's a letter from the Federal Correctional Facility. Of course there was. Marcus had a talent for timing, too. Send it in. The envelope was thin, prison-issue manila. Inside was a single page, the handwriting familiar yet changed. Less confident, more cramped. You won, it began simply. I've had a year to think about that night at the Metropolitan Grill, about everything that came after. I thought I was showing everyone how little power you had. Instead, I showed them and myself how wrong I was about you. Olivia watched me read, her expression careful. Are you going to respond? No need. I placed the letter in my desk drawer next to the old photo from the charity gala. Some chapters are better left closed. My phone buzzed. Richard Harding, probably calling about next week's board meeting, but it was Chloe instead. Turn on CNBC, she said without preamble. They're doing a piece on women reshaping Wall Street. You're the lead story. The TV flickered to life, show footage from that fateful night at the Metropolitan Grill, followed by shots of Marcus's arrest and the merger announcement. The headline read, From Humiliation to Empire, the Eleanor Vance Story. Looking back, my recorded self said on screen, success isn't just about winning. It's about transforming adversity into opportunity, betrayal into strength. Ben entered as the segment ended. Speaking of transformation, Mia's intern program is being featured in Business Weekly. Apparently, we're revolutionizing corporate mentorship. I thought of Mia, now confidently running her own department, and all the other lives that had been reshaped in the aftermath of my revenge. Some changes were planned, others unexpected, but all of them had contributed to something larger than mere retribution. Your next appointment is here, Maria announced. The potential new CFO. Send her in. I turned to Olivia and Ben. Would you both stay? Some decisions are better made as a team. As we conducted the interview, I couldn't help but notice how different it felt from when I'd hired Marcus all those years ago. I was different, stronger, wiser, more attuned to the subtle tells that revealed character. Later that evening, as the office emptied and the city lights began to twinkle on, I found myself back at the window. My reflection had changed too. Not just the external trappings of success, but something deeper, in the eyes, in the set of the shoulders. Car's ready, Michael announced, still my driver after all this time. Dinner reservation at the Metropolitan Grill? I smiled at the irony. Not tonight. Some restaurants are better left as memories. Instead, I gathered my things and prepared to head home, to my new apartment. A penthouse with a view of both the sunrise and sunset. On my desk, Marcus's letter peeked out from the drawer, a reminder of how far I'd come. You know, Olivia said, collecting her own belongings, a year ago, you said it was about getting the last laugh. Was it worth it? I thought about Sophie's graduation invitation, about Mia's successful program, about the Scholarship Foundation changing lives, about Marcus's letter, and all the ways revenge had transformed not just him, but me. It was never about the last laugh, I realized. It was about the first step toward becoming who I was meant to be. As we rode down in the elevator, I caught a final glimpse of my reflection in the polished doors. The woman who'd been humiliated at the Metropolitan Grill was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more complex, more complete. He had tried to humiliate me by flirting with another woman in front of me, but by the end of that night, and every night since, it was me who walked away with something far more valuable than the last laugh. I walked away with my destiny. Wow, what an epic ride. That's a story of ultimate power and owning your narrative. If you were hooked by this tale of triumph and strategy, please give this video a huge thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and join our growing community of incredible people. We love hearing from you, so leave a comment below with your favorite part of the story or what you learned from Eleanor's incredible journey. And of course, share this with anyone who needs a dose of inspiration and a reminder that true strength comes from within. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.